I was pretty surprised how Hi, I'm Marc Emery. This is Greg Williams.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. We're here from Under the Influence. I'm Marijuana Man. This is Marc Emery.
Hey. I'm here with my Freedom Bomb.
Of course, Kush Queen in between.
Hola!
Welcome to everybody out there joining us live out there on the internet. We're here every Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And a bunch of people join in the chat too, so we'll get to that in a second.
But right now, you're going to do a Freedom Hit 3 times for 3 states that legalized yesterday.
Okay.
Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. legalized, so you were going to have a hit for each one of those states. Right now, on the Freedom Bomb, what more appropriate bomb could be?
Freedom Bomb camera.
We have a cam for it.
Nice. Great.
There's Alaska, tote for.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been thrilled to know that in the United States that
Here we
through
go.
midterm elections, they've overturned prohibition laws in Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. and Guam. So get ready
Oh,
for
that
your,
was Guam. This will be
ready for
Oregon.
your Guam.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Guam, of course, is
Okay. And now for Washington, D.C.
All right.
MzKush Queen celebrating the freedom now gained by hardworking activists, millionaire financiers.
There we go. We just made an audio change. An internal audio change, so you know how painful that can be.
Very good. Now we've
So-
celebrated those 4 victories in Guam, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. with a noble effort, but not quite 60% achieved in Florida.
Yeah, Florida dropped
Their
the ball.
medical marijuana.
All I want to
Jeff,
say to all the senior citizens in Florida, you should have found out more about it. They're going to be a little surprised when all their girlfriends and boyfriends from Oregon are going to be phoning down and saying, you know, Martha, you should have legalized the marijuana. It's helped my arthritis.
well, it's
I'm
quite
not-
likely that millions of dollars from Sheldon Adelman,
Yes.
the man who owns the casinos in Las Vegas and
Yeah,
China.
Yeah, they pulled out all the stops in
It's
Florida.
quite possible the profits from Chinese gambling ended up defeating a medical marijuana initiative in Florida.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
So I find that interesting that all of Sheldon Adelman's money comes from Vegas.
It sure didn't defeat it by much, though. We're looking at 57.6% in favor, and it still lost because it had to get 60% to pass in Florida. So it's pretty unfair. I mean, how are those 57% of people actually represented then?
Yeah, that's how they do it in Florida.
Well, I'll tell you why that is, though, in defense to supermajority changes to the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's not just, I don't believe it's just a piece of legislation. It's not called an initiative, it's called Amendment 2. An amendment usually is an amendment to the state constitution that enshrines it into a rather permanent law. Now, if I'm wrong, then it's just a dumb law. But I always think that if you're going to change a state or a country's constitution, you need a supermajority.
A little bit more, yeah, supermajority.
Right, you just can't have gotten 50% today or something, right? It has to be a solid majority of the country.
And I actually agree with you. I think to change the Constitution, you probably want to have it pretty solid with the public.
Right. So that's the idea. That now it might also have been because he just wanted to thwart public initiatives,
Right.
By having the threshold,
Which
so
they
high,
do a lot.
which they did in British Columbia when we end up having 57% for a proportional representation system, and that we needed 60% to change the way we vote for political parties here.
Yeah.
But the majority of the province voted to change it completely from the first past the post system we have now.
Yeah.
well,
Right? It
from
was a single transferable vote.
That
remember?
STV, that's
Like,
right.
we never talk about it, but it was a great idea.
Yeah.
Right, but
It really
and
was a good idea.
historically, we know that Florida, they don't play by the rules anyway. The Bush family.
Anyway, we've got to commend John Morgan, the lawyer. When I was in prison down in Mississippi, every day on the radio, I would hear his advertisements for Morgan & Morgan for
Morgan
the
& Morgan,
people.
yeah.
So I grew up with John Morgan, and so I was delighted to hear that that man spent $7 million, $3 million to get the signatures for the initiative, and $4 million to promote the initiative. So, I mean, that's extraordinary. And he says he's going to start lobbying in Tallahassee, the capital, Florida, to make sure they pass it anyway, since the will of the majority is that it should pass. So anyway, that argument's not over. And that's the good thing about our people is, we're not waiting around for someone else to do it. Things are happening right away in all these jurisdictions.
And here we are now sandwiched between legalization.
Totally.
Yeah, and that brings us back to our history, because I brought up Mississippi, being in prison for 5 years, and all the rich ironies in that. Not only did Washington State, where I was sentenced and convicted, legalize marijuana, but my prosecutor, John McKay, in 2005, turns around and decides that prohibition's not a good thing and ends up having a significant participation in writing the Washington State legalization law and campaigning for it, and ultimately campaigning with Jody,
Yeah, well, that
my
was
wife,
funny.
during that campaign leading
Oh,
up to
he
2000.
couldn't have looked more at his shoes that day than he did. I
Well,
gotta tell you.
Anyway, I admire him for that, and I
Yeah.
think that was a great thing. But now we have this opportunity for you and I to revisit the past, but through the future. And the seed desk is open a week from today. No, in fact, a week yesterday. In 6 days.
6 days from
you're-
today, we're going to open the seed desk again.
It's Vancouver Seed Bank at Cannabis Culture.
I'm thrilled.
And it's the first time seeds
Come
have
Monday.
been sold in this building for about 9 years and 4 months.
Yes, we took a small sabbatical, if you will.
Yeah, but we're looking forward to working with Rebecca Ambrose of Vancouver Seed Bank, and we should
Yeah.
have a full line there, and you'll be doing a new show.
We'll be figuring out when and how to do a new show from that location, and don't know what day of the week it'll be yet. We'll try to keep it on Wednesdays, but you never know.
It'll be called
What did we come up with earlier?
At the Seed Desk.
Oh, yes,
It's obvious.
right. At the
I
seed
like
desk,
it.
right.
Yeah, no, it's a good
Seed desk.
It's good because
So look
Greg
for
used
that.
to do that. We used to have a show all the time and talk about seeds and smoke a lot of weed, and Greg would talk about all the different
The grow
weed he's
show.
got and the seeds that we've got to match the seeds, or trips that he went, just a lot of stuff. It was amazing. Now, we were pioneers back then, so it's a challenge to come up with, in this world with 25 magazines and endless
yeah.
specific forums and cults and, factions and all that sort of,
Oh, yes.
all the entertainment people can get, how relevant is something about growing and bringing. But it would be nice to have interviews with the actual guys that do the seeds. They could be off camera, but something that's going on a dialogue.
Right, if they wanna be
with
in
how
there.
this all happened, because there's still a lot of mystery to this seed business.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
And
Yeah, well,
and also the
We'll have all our friends around, and good growers and breeders will be in the house, and virtually anyone who comes by will.
yeah, and
be
you
able
can
to
take
have
chat
talk.
questions on how do you end up, or what are these F1s or F2s, or any of those kind of like cool specific things. You could even make like that. So you could post for the live audience watching. They can participate in the chat.
And we'll smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah, and probably some cutting edge
Undoubtedly.
weed too. I'm hoping some
I
of
hope
these
so,
guys
too.
working with seeds, naturally have great weed to go along with what they're doing. So.
And we'll be scouring the world as we did way back when for the best genetics and the newest stuff that's out there. Or we'll be looking for the Dutch genetics.
And we're lucky in that way because we're meeting a lot of these people. You were just in Spain with me at
Yeah.
the Irun Hemp Expo, but I've been to a number of 2 hemp expos and going to another one in Amsterdam, and I'm meeting all the seed people. So we definitely have good terms going on with them. We're in good
Yeah.
shape. So
No, it'll be very exciting and vibrant. So when you're in Vancouver, 307 West Hastings, second floor.
top and second, where the museum used to be, because David naturally got this great opportunity. At the same time, we wanted to have a seed desk, so he's found a good opportunity with the money from the museum that he wants to open a dispensary. And so where the old museum was on the second floor, right at the top of the steps, people
Things are moving ahead.
should be able to
quickly.
smell the seed desk.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be excited to see all of our old friends back and a whole bunch of new people too. And I'm thrilled to be there. So
So that's starting Monday. People can come by. I mean, we'll be painting and fixing up the place, but I kind of had a November 10th. You'd be there with the inventory.
yeah, that's right.
And an inventory, and we're going to
November.
promote it a lot on our social media, which we have a lot of people participating in, and we'll start promoting that extensively and putting signs out for the store. And
So yeah, check that out. We'll be happy to have you all come down and visit anytime. But we'll get a new show out there too, and you'll be able to come and visit us there too. Maybe we'll do 2 shows. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's all a blur right now.
Well, there's lots of changes coming too. You know, just we've got so many new things going on around here. So
It's really
Now,
amazing.
here's something new for our show this week. Kush Queen has a story. Kush Queen and the police.
story.
Marijuana related even.
Marijuana.
You should take the microphone though.
Okay, I will. Okay.
There you go.
So, yesterday I was driving along and I took a left turn where I wasn't supposed to because I didn't see the sign. And there was cops waiting for me there and pulled me over, and I was in the middle of smoking a fatty. Yeah, and the guy, so he asked me to roll my window down and ask for my license, and was like, oh, it smells like marijuana, like a lot.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh, I haven't been smoking. I do have some on me in my bag because I'm allowed to carry it, but that's it.
choice.
And he was just like, okay, now the reason I'm pulling you over is because blah, 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 you didn't take the left turn, gave me a ticket for that, and I went on my way and
Oh,
sparked
really?
up my doobie.
Wow.
Got away with it.
I couldn't believe it, yeah.
Fine,
So,
by the way.
$121 for,
Wow.
or 171, I think. 121 or 171 for
Holy cow.
not following the signs. Yeah.
We went the wrong way on a one-way street.
No, it was one of those signs where you can't turn left from such and such hours, and I didn't see it. And I took a
Really?
left,
170
yeah.
bucks for that?
Well, we all hate being stuck behind people. Like
But I couldn't believe that they. But I couldn't believe that the VPD let me go when I was clearly
Well,
smoking a joint in my car.
You're quite an
Clearly.
attractive girl.
Here's the thing: women get away with more.
Yep.
In that regard.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when we talk about white privilege, male privilege, female, we got to admit there's some female privilege
Oh,
in
yeah.
the world.
Oh, for sure.
And one of those is having a better ability to dodge tickets by cops. And you especially. I guess women turn on the charm for cops if they can stay. If they
True.
Oh, it's true.
They
It's
haven't done
true.
really
I gave the
anything
Puss in Boots eyes. I
Yeah,
was like,
Oh yeah.
you know, looking
Oh,
up at
you
him.
know
I'm
what?
so
A very
sorry.
similar thing, nearly identical, happened to myself
See,
and
because they're
Brittany.
imagining
You know,
sex
Brittany.
with you
Yep.
at that level.
When we were in
Because they've got all the
Sacramento.
power over you, and your face would be right at their loins level. So if you're giving them the doe eyes, for a brief moment he's going, I could be, and then fuck it, and then he doesn't write you the ticket, right?
Well, and there was
Because his mind drifted there just enough.
There
for
was-
him to feel
Get
a
me
little
out of that.
guilty.
But I still got the ticket.
There's a
And
video
now
that just
he
came out.
rationalized doing something for you.
Exactly.
Because you've done something wrong. See, that's just not.
And now our minds have drifted.
there was a video that just
I'm
came
just
out.
saying an example of female privilege, and it does exist. We all.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, I
guilty of
just
providing
felt like
that.
it was a step forward for the VPD because that was pretty awesome.
Well, and here's
and
the
I've been
other-
hearing more
You
stories.
They're
like
pretty
that.
good.
Thing. You said the right thing. You basically said, I'm in possession, but I'm not impaired.
Exactly.
Because if you'd have said, yeah, I'm smoking my ass off, then he has reason to believe that you don't care if you're impaired, and therefore he now has a reason to stop you. But because you said you're in possession and not impaired, he thinks, well, possession means nothing in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
We don't arrest people, so here's the fine for what I observed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, it's
Exactly.
420.
So I was very lucky. Oh, happy 420!
Now,
Let's,
should we
uh,
trumpet that reality that nobody's being arrested in Vancouver? Like for anything marijuana related? Like
There still are arrests going
Really?
on. Oh,
I have
yes.
never seen a grow operation in the newspapers for months.
Well,
That is something
lately,
that they did.
I'm not so sure about the last few months, but they're
Like
Kirk,
they
the last
they
time I
raided
talked
a
to
few
Kirk.
dispensaries, but
Yeah.
but I'm just and if they come to your home and there's some other reason they find weed or find a grow, yeah, maybe they would charge you. But I don't see that bust a day thing going
No.
on.
And
Went
well,
on for a
That-
decade.
that's
And for
slowed
not for
down
possession
an
at all.
awful
In the
lot.
90s, when cash heat was going around, those guys did one every 3 or 4
Oh,
days.
yeah. No, for
and it was
sure they
always
did.
in the paper and on TV and all that. Now, one of the things that might have happened is nobody wants to see that anymore. But I actually don't think it's going on, and I've talked to other people, and they've noticed it too.
Well, definitely not in the possession realm. Nobody's getting
No,
arrested
I'm
in Vancouver
talking about
for the
selling.
grow ops. Yeah.
So I don't see people getting arrested for selling pot. I don't see people getting arrested for having pizza joints distributing
Nope.
pot. I don't see
They can
people
even go
getting-
and apply for
I have
business
not
licenses.
seen a bust in a major
don't get 'em,
media for weeks and weeks and weeks in Vancouver. Now you do see them in Burnaby or other places, but
Oh, yeah.
Vancouver it's proper. With the VPD, I have not seen it.
No. Well, and they've
Right.
even released press releases before outright saying they will not be going after people smoking marijuana or doing these things.
I'm also pleased that basically people are behaving well in view of this. that there aren't people going wild and doing crazy shit thing like having a carnival where you have like 200 booths all selling weed all day long in the main part of no, I'm just kidding. But so maybe compared to that, everything else is pretty normal.
Yeah.
But what's up with the next year's location for 420?
Well,
Jeremiah?
we have decided on a location. Now, it's just a matter of actually being able to harness this location and use it without a lot of flack from the powers that be here in the city of Vancouver. Unfortunately, we've been told that the Vancouver Art Gallery itself will be under construction and have a big fence around it with a bunch of dirt on it. So the city is forcing us to move from our choice location. Now, that means we can't really go too far from there because people are still going to show up there. We have to do it somewhere downtown. And so we've chosen a place called Jack Pool Plaza, which is down right on the waterfront. It's just a couple streets away from the Vancouver Art Gallery. Yeah, it's
by the convention
right
center?
next to the Vancouver Convention Center, in between the Convention Center, the new Convention Center, and the Cactus Club. There's a large stage area where people can gather. So that's the spot we're going to try and take it. Now, we're going to inform them of that right away. This week and next week, we're going to be telling them this is what we're doing. So we're about to find out if we're going to get some feedback from them about that in the negative. The city themselves, when I brought this issue up to them before, one of the city officials winced and said, oh, well, we don't control that as much. It's a combination of the federal government and the provincial government that actually runs that property. But according to our lawyers, constitutionally, we're protected to have a protest anywhere we like. If it's public property, that includes provincial and federal. So theoretically, we should be able to go and take it without nothing they can really do. I mean, if they want to give us trouble for, some bylaw issue or something, they could. But I don't see the city really doing that. And if by us declaring our intentions early, hopefully we'll find out soon if there is going to be some negative opinions about it. But we'll have to find out.
So
this
you're
next
about
couple
to have
weeks.
meetings with the city.
We are,
in
yeah.
that
We have
regard.
meetings lined up.
Well, at least that we'll know about that in a show soon enough.
We will, yeah. And the spot itself is really a great spot for it. So if we do end up going there and that is the spot without any trouble, it's going to be a really cool. It's perfect for the booths we have. It's perfect for the stage we want. It's got a lot. So.
By the way, we, as our audience may or may not know, we were the first people to do a 420 on April 20th, starting in 1995, right across the street in Victory Square.
Hemp for Victory Square?
Hemp for Victory Square, which is where the first one was.
Yeah.
But now they have them everywhere. They're having them in Prague,
That's
and
right.
Vienna, and
Colorado.
Europe.
Denver has
yeah.
a massive 420.
So that's one of the great things we did in Vancouver that's spread around the world now. And it's kind of
very
fun to
cool.
hear them say that in Prague, where I'm in
Yeah.
charge of the 420 this year.
And it's fun, Mark, the story about 420 when it first happened. You were actually sort of antagonistic to the idea.
Oh,
at
I
first.
said no.
Yeah.
Two deadheads came up, Cindy Lasso and Dana Rozic, and they said to me, I'd only just learned about this smoking at 420 and saying it's 420, smoke them if you got them.
the time itself.
Earlier, when I hired them, these people from Grateful Dead tours, and so when they came up to me in early April of 1995 and they said, Mark, can we have a 420 celebration? And I go, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Well, on April 20th, it's like 4:20 in the afternoon, right? So we should do something special on that day. And I go, what do you mean do something special? Well, how about at Victory Park, we just have a celebration there. I said, well, how long would the celebration be? And they said, oh, all day. And I said, all day? You can't smoke pot all day in a park. I said, that's so decadent. And then I looked at them. I said, do you think we can get away with that? And they go, yeah, I think we could. And then I went, no, that's too, all day, no, we can't do that. So then they walked away,
Impossible.
and then they came back half hour later, and they said, well, Mark, even if you don't approve, can we do it anyway? And I thought, well, I do admire initiative, and okay, and I said, okay, you can do it, and go ahead and do that in your spare time. And then they conferred, and they were giggling, and then they came back half an hour later, and they said, Mark, would you pay for it and help?
Yeah, that's what they really need.
So eventually we did pay for the stage and stuff, but not much was really involved. And we had cables going out of the store down the street with those platform things on proper thing, but big cables coming out of every outlet in the
Right
store,
across the road.
running down the street
Oh,
to the
jeez.
park, right? And that's how we got the power there for that day.
Yeah.
And of course, about only 200 people showed up, mostly word of mouth. And they sat around and they nervously looked around, and they smoked pot, and they got braver, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
And that was the key thing. I often say, history is made and our movement is made by the people who just show up. Like last night, people showed up to vote. They made it happen, right?
Yeah.
Those people that showed up in Victory Park that year, just that day, for just those 5 or 6 hours, set
Made it happen.
on a course where well over 1 million people now.
Oh, yeah, easily.
On April 20th next year, will be congregating in public places around the world.
It's huge.
Because
Yeah.
they showed up,
amazing.
right?
Yeah.
And so all the things that when people show up, you get legal marijuana in Alaska, you get illegal marijuana in Oregon, Washington, Colorado, District of Columbia, and Guam. Can't forget Guam.
Can't forget Guam.
And because people showed up, and just enough people showed up. I mean, I would actually want people to think that your vote was pretty precious in those marijuana legalization things. It's all or nothing, right here and now,
Yeah.
right? And if enough people were feeling lazy or unmotivated, it's just a few percentage points.
It's
just
true.
a few percentage
And I
points.
mean, there were other things. Like now, of course, in Vancouver, we have a 420 that houses around it these amazing kiosks that sell every kind of pot you can imagine openly, where the police are helping us shut down the streets to sell illegal marijuana everywhere. But that didn't just come. I mean, that wasn't just showing up either, though. That was showing up with balls, because when that first started happening and people started selling marijuana openly, the police did try to intervene. And David Malmo Levine and others came up with Hug Power, hugged and kind of made the police back down repeatedly every time this happened.
Though we probably haven't had any trouble since about 1999.
Well,
Not
actually,
for a
the
long
one
time,
we did
no.
at the Global Marijuana March in 2010, the police did try to arrest Stephen Pay, the other marijuana man, and we used Hug Power again, and we actually had them back down with Hug Power. That was 2010.
I would
So that
definitely
was the
say
last
that
time.
the VPD have been
It was a rogue cop, though.
valorous
Well-
Yeah.
in the way they help us.
Right now in the House of Commons, they're debating whether or not to make Remembrance Day a statutory holiday.
Now, it already is provincially, by the way.
And they pointed out that it would be like Cannabis Day, and I thought, well, we're going to have another festival then. And we could call it Short-Term Remembrance Day.
Well,
I like that.
you'd have to tell. I'm not sure there's humor in Remembrance Day.
No.
It might be one of those days along with
Oh, you-
Holocaust.
Almost
Day.
feel
You'd
like
never get away with
stores
it.
and businesses should wait with the Christmas stuff until after Remembrance Day,
That-
just to give them a little respect.
It is.
You know
November
what I mean? Like the
15th is a
veterans.
good start for
Yeah, like
Christmas.
Starbucks. I mean, it was the first, and there was Christmas cups and carols, and I'm just like, oh my
Yeah, because
goodness. Like,
Remembrance
are
Day
we really there already? Like,
It's
come
supposed to be
on.
a somber thing.
Oh,
And of course,
yeah.
this year it'll get hijacked by our megalomaniac fascist prime minister.
Oh, yeah, it'll be
trying to
war
take
for
that
sale.
one corporal's death and making some,
Yeah.
new expanded police state over it. And so there's been a real amped up
Oh, it's
patriotism.
war for sale now with Remembrance Week. Month,
Well, it's also in a way to
year.
make us feel good about indiscriminately bombing and killing people and blowing stuff up
Yes,
without
which
a
is
lot of
going
idea
on.
of what we're really doing.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting on the news too. They told me of a bombing raid of the CF-18s or whatever they are,
Yeah.
and they said that the next day they couldn't go on a bombing raid because it was cloudy. They said that tomorrow that we're going to have them fitted with GPSs. They didn't have GPSs on these jets.
Well, these
A
are old
week ago.
starfighters. These starfighters must be from the 80s.
But wouldn't every pilot have his cell phone with a GPS to figure out? Crazy.
I somehow can't think
nonsense.
of a plane being built without GPS.
No,
Right.
Me either. But they so casually told me this that it was
Are
cloudy.
you sure
so we
that's
couldn't
for
bu-
real?
That's what they said on the news, CTV.
But that's nutty that a
Oh,
plane isn't
a
equipped
lot of
with.
stuff they say is nutty on CTV.
has electric bolts in it or something, there are some dangerous clouds.
No, they said they didn't. They said they didn't have GPSs.
Well, anyway,
There's some bad clouds.
we
So-
always post the war equals death banner out front that's very
Yes.
visible from the thing, and Jody stands beside
We used to
that.
kind of battle with Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day takes place here in Vancouver, right across the street from our store.
At Hemp for Victory Square.
And where 420 started, actually. But it's huge now, man. Oh man, it's just packed
What,
out there.
Remembrance Day?
So, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be not so big, and we could be open, and we used to have our reggae music playing, and they'd complain, and we'd fight. But now we
Well,
don't do that
Insecure
anymore.
countries do that, though. They make a lot of pomp about the military.
That's
You look at who pays attention to their military: North Korea, China, United States, Russia, Canada. Now Harper's trying to get us worked up about our military to feel a sense of brotherhood and patriotism and all that
A
sort
lot
of
of
stuff.
these countries are people who are the ones that make the weapons too.
Right. Well, in fact, all
Right.
the same people that enshrine their army in this holy aura, that they're heroes and that the United States is terrible for that. Russia's bad. There are all these countries, and now Canada's entered along with these warlike, would want to be warlike nations.
Harper's in the cabal now.
Yeah.
With his army. So yeah, crazy days ahead with these clowns. There's some big sex scandal going on in Ottawa today. And I don't know, I believe sexual harassment probably is the scenario, although they have not announced that yet. They keep skirting around that issue. But the whole story today was about that they need regulations in the House of Commons as to how to deal with these kinds of things. And you go, well, isn't there laws in Canada for people? You need special things going on for the MPs to...
Well, the reality is we don't need any more laws. There's nothing that human beings haven't done that if it's a problem, we should already have a law. So by now, what laws are you passing? What do you need to regulate and control that isn't already regulated and
They've tried to
controlled?
separate MPs having some sort of different forum that they need to address in their scenario. I don't really understand what the confusion was today, but no, it's just sad watching the news in the morning. I try not to. I'd rather watch The Price is Right, I think.
Well,
I get
anyway, you're
much
bumming me
more
out
out of
with
it.
your story here. Well, I think we should be preparing Canadians starting from now. And when we've talked about the United States and these wonderful victories, and we've talked about we're selling seeds to continue overgrowing the government and get back to the old thing. But we have an election in now under a year. It's finally under a year.
Under a year, that's
right. And so, we got to promote October 19th, 2015 is Legalization Day in Canada. That's the day we get it done. We get a Liberal majority. We dispense with Stephen Harper, hopefully, as well as get a party who's explicitly about legalization, where all their members expect legalization, as does everybody who votes for them.
Yes.
And they've got a plan in place. Probably not a perfect plan, but
We can help them with
yeah,
their
we can help
plan.
them with
Exactly.
that. And
If
we're
we help
hoping-
them get elected,
we're
we
hoping
can help them
Jody
with their plan.
Emery, my wife, is also a candidate throughout that campaign and can be of assistance to them. If they need that advice, I'm hoping they'll certainly go to her for that.
No,
and
we'll be looking
that
for-
nomination should be determined in the next month or so we'll know if Jody's the candidate. But either way, it's really vital for every Canadian to get out and vote in this next election, and we've all got to unify behind the Liberal parties. And I'm amazed how much ignorance I meet when I hear reasons for people not to vote Liberal. There might actually be good reasons not to vote for Liberal, but this is the first opportunity in the history of Canada where we can vote and make marijuana
Yes,
legal
exactly.
by the act of voting. There's no other opportunity in our past, and there's likely not going to be another one ever
No,
again.
this will be our
So
only
this is the
chance.
only one. So the only excuse I can possibly see for not voting Liberal is that you're a quadriplegic and you're locked in a closet and you can't possibly get to the polls. Otherwise, every other comment I've heard by people is abysmal ignorance. Foolish stuff. Oh, remember the sponsorship scandal? Yeah, I do. It was in 2001. Okay, that was 13 years ago. In the meantime, Harper has done terrible, devastating things.
Is that what
and-
they're saying?
Oh no, you
Oh
know
my
what it
God.
is.
The
Both the
sponsorship
Conservative
scandal.
government as well as Vision Vancouver have paid trolls. And they go and comb the internet and add their rhubarby comments all day and cause misinformation and stuff like that. But don't underestimate the amount of ignorance that is out there.
Yeah.
And so I've met every silly, ridiculous argument for not voting for the Liberals. And it's, they go, I don't trust them. I said, well, who cares if you don't trust them? Vote anyway. What's the alternative? You don't trust them and you're not going to vote for them, or you don't trust them and you're going to vote for them. Well, either way, what if you're wrong? And you didn't vote, you dumbass. So go vote for him and then don't trust him until he comes across and gives us legalization.
Exactly.
But I'm...
Yeah, I
So-
don't know. Too many people take pride in why they don't vote. They've got some whole thing built up around
And really
it,
all
right?
that is...
And
is
that's
that
their
it's-
big
it's an-
statement against it.
It's an ignorance they're trying to pass off as some kind of intellectual stance.
Exactly.
They're too fucking lazy to make a decision and be responsible for the government we've got, because you're a citizen, so you ought to be responsible. And get off your ass, and so pick your choice, and then you've got to justify that government. or you've got to change your vote.
That's
you know,
right.
and then maybe you'll even get involved in influencing how these people work. Join a, you know, and politics is a dirty business. It's everybody who works in it generally regards it, and it is challenging, right? But it's what it is, and it's what we've got, and you can't bypass your oppressors by ignoring them.
No.
Right?
And
That
they
doesn't
said
work.
they'd legalize marijuana.
And they said they'd
That's
legalize-
good
and
enough for
somebody
me.
And not only
saying
that,
it.
all the members voted on that at a convention. The leaders repeated it endlessly. It occupies a huge part of their website. It's clearly going to be an election issue from the last 6 months to the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So
And-
there's no dodge in this one. This isn't like Chrétien, you know, floating in the air that it's like a $100 fine maybe, and we'll talk to the Americans first. No, we're past all that. It's going to be the real deal. And we get one shot at it, and it's October 19th, right? Take 30 minutes of your life tops to make
And
marijuana legal.
If you want to go out and do more, do something more for your Liberal candidate in your riding.
Yep. And
Right?
tell your family to go
yeah,
and do that.
And spread the word.
Don't even have
and-
to talk to strangers. Talk to the people you know. We take for granted that we shouldn't talk politics with our family. Wrong. They don't want you going to jail for pot. They don't want you being arrested. They don't want you paying $200 an ounce. So, you know, a legal regime would solve every parent's concerns, every neighbor's concern, every other person's concern, and all the people who don't smoke pot. There's so many good reasons to legalize for the people who don't smoke pot and don't ever care what happens with it.
Absolutely. And we'll see that. But Justin Trudeau, obviously, I don't trust any politician because the game that they're playing there is not necessarily what we think they're doing. All right, they're still being led around by big business and corporate interests, and they always will be. It doesn't really matter
Here's
who's
the
the
thing,
prime
though.
minister.
Cynicism plays into the hands of our enemies. We should maintain our idealism, but we should have to work with the reality on the streets. Just because a sidewalk has a crack in it doesn't mean we don't walk down there anymore. We just make do. If there's piles of snow, we either shovel it or walk around. But in other words, you don't stop navigating your way through life because something's not perfect.
Not perfect. That's right.
So our political system is greatly imperfect. But your participation doesn't make that worse, it makes it better. And it makes you a better citizen. So it's still a cop-out to say they're all corrupt. Yeah, well, why is that? Because we let them get away with
it's
it, right?
been
So it's
exactly.
still our fault anyway,
Yeah.
right? So that's even not an excuse.
But my point would be that even though I may well feel that way, they've still said they want to legalize marijuana. So that's the party that I would vote for. If the NDP said it and we're serious, yeah, I'd be going with them too.
But they've already burned us. That's
They
the
burned us
problem. They
once.
told us
Right.
they would, and then they didn't.
That's
For
right.
10 years. So, you know, people want to know why aren't you supporting the NDP? Well, they burned us.
Yeah.
So if politicians all lie, well, Harper's not lying. He hates us, right? and Jack Layton didn't follow through with what he promised us. So we've got this new guy, Justin Trudeau. He says he's going to fully legalize. The party supports it. All the Liberal Party candidates support it. They've even got their own MP in charge of the marijuana file.
Yes.
That guy, Sean Casey from Prince Edward Island. So they're serious. And ba-bang, it's bong cam. Okay, here we go.
And just another
Kush
note.
Queen is gonna
Another
hit
note
the
about the
Freedom Bong.
NDP here, Mark. It wasn't just that they burned us, but also, of course, by Jack passing away and ceasing being the leader of the party, and Thomas Mulcair taking over, it's an even worse position because Mulcair himself hates marijuana, thinks it gives people schizophrenia, and has said all kinds of nasty stuff about it before he even had to retract statements that he said about it.
Right.
So Mulcair himself is not. I mean, Libby told us, you know, in her office, she said Mulcair's not coming along on this one. She's done everything she could. So it's one of those things. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people are being critical of Jodi's campaign because we're taking Libby on if Jodi actually gets the nomination. But unfortunately, Libby can't even really be Libby right now. She can't be the person that she wants to be. If Libby had her way, she would legalize, but her party isn't going for it. So
Well, it might even be the double tragedy that Jodi ends up not being able to say what she wants to say, that if she doesn't get greenlit by the Liberal brass,
Right.
then they're saying we don't feel comfortable with what you might say, even though Jodi's never said an off-note thing in her life.
Exactly.
And Libby's been reprimanded on both defending the Palestinians as well as using the word legalize, which she can't use anymore now because that's not the party policy. And the problem for Libby is that she's the health critic. And you're theoretically the health minister in waiting who would be responsible for the marijuana laws. So
Right.
I can't believe Libby's saying that if I were the health minister, all I would do is decrim, which is actually the Solicitor General's department or Attorney General's department.
Exactly.
Wouldn't even be her.
And it's an
then she'd
unscientific
maintain it in the
position.
schedule and everything and make no
Yeah.
change from the health department except on medical marijuana.
And it's worse for Libby because Libby knows damn well that the decriminalization position is unscientific and could cause more problems than it actually helps in a lot of ways. So, you know, and she's always said that. She's been a supporter of legalization herself, so. Yeah. But, I mean, hopefully she's still trying to have an influence within the party.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. You know, Mulcair seems to be kind of one of those strong leader types that doesn't seem to want to
Anyway,
listen.
as we've seen, politics is always in a certain amount of disarray, but that can never let us get jaded. We have to keep our eyes on the prize, and any reasonable method whatsoever that's peaceful and honest in order to make pot legal in Canada, we want to do that. We want to participate in every possible way with that, whatever is available. And there's to be no exception to that. And peaceful and honest is important because, you know, we're talking about overgrowing the government. And we're using a plant here as our symbol. So for us, it's going to be peaceful, honest, upfront. We want to convince all Canadians of what we want, why we want marijuana legal, and it's a good thing for everybody, right? So it's always important that we're transparent and respectable to the process, right? If we're disdainful of the process, we become disdainful of Canadians. Because together we make up the process, and there's no way to get around that. Sure, some people have got more influence and money than others, but essentially we're still citizens, and it's our responsibility to get together and come up with sane ways to have a social system, right? I mean, Canada's still a great place to be. It's a place I'd most want to be in the world.
Me too.
And we only want to improve it. We don't want to denigrate it, so that's what we're dealing with. How to get rid of Stephen Harper and how to legalize marijuana on the same day. We can do that. So, you know,
well, and hopefully they'll reverse a lot of the changes that Harper's been putting into place.
You know what, though? It tends to be they don't do that.
That is true.
That would be my ultimate political party, to repeal all the bad laws we've got in this country, of which there's so many.
Yeah.
But that
because it's not all just about pot.
That's
for
why
us.
Harper's pretty convinced that even if he's defeated, he leaves a permanent imprint. Because a government to undo previous, it's a lot of work.
Oh, it is.
It's better to
and usually the power system itself doesn't want to undo those things that gives it more power.
But you know what? Canada's more than just Stephen Harper. We can recover from anything he does. If we're the same people we think we are, it's only a matter of time before we reassert our true nature.
Yes.
But we'll see. I'm not concerned about that. Canada, even after Stephen Harper, is still Canada for the most part.
Yes.
You know, let's not think we've become a dictatorship too seriously. He is an authoritarian.
Yeah.
Right, but we still have institutions, and they're all being undermined, like the media,
Right.
and the free press, and our security, and the surveillance state is all. But we're still Canada. We
Right,
can
and
still
he's
make an
really
appeal
been
on Facebook.
Successful at activating his base, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really who puts him into power. It's not Canadians that put him into power.
No, it's
his
because we're
base.
fragmented over several opposition parties.
Exactly.
And Canadians themselves are very diverse people, and we have many different needs and desires that can't be expressed by just 2 or 3 political parties, but such is the system we've inherited.
And will work well within
Yeah.
it.
Well, we've no choice, and we got to be happy doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, exciting times ahead on the campaign trail for Jody and Mark out there spreading the word. So look for them
but
coming
I'm fired
to your
up. These
neighborhood.
Americans are 5 for 5 now.
I can't
Well, we
believe it.
lost Oregon in 2012, but they made good. So it's like they canceled that old one, and now it's 5 for 5.
Florida next time.
Yeah, I bet they're a little.
California
Oh, that's a
soon.
bit of a stink.
But
No, it's
still, they
just
know
gonna,
they have
like,
the moral
jog
high
us.
ground. 57 to 43% is pretty big.
Oh yeah, and all the articles today in the newspaper are actually, you know, addressing the fact that it was a majority, a pretty strong majority that voted that.
No,
and
a
still
lot
lost.
of people came out and voted.
Is that sublimator working? Is that a happening thing?
It is.
Oh, okay,
She's
because
fired
I've
up.
got
Oh,
some
you want a hoot?
butter, which I bet would be great. Do you have any tools, MzKush Queen?
I do.
We're
Well,
set
funny you
up
should
right
say
here.
that. We'll just move this
Funny you
here.
should say that.
I shall get some of Butter King's finest out here.
So we've
So,
got
so the Canadian medicinal marijuana program continues to be in disarray.
Yes.
They're currently now being sued by a licensed producer.
No.
Oh
yes, he is
an unlicensed producer,
yeah.
actually.
Whom we know well.
Yes.
I know him well.
Sam Malachi,
Yeah.
who could not be reached for comment. But
Really? You call-
well,
okay.
according to the article I read.
Oh. Sam had
But,
talked to us.
No,
Oh,
yeah, he's taken exception to the fact that they denied him.
Yeah, to
and,
become a licensed producer.
They've also denied hundreds of others, too. Whether or not this is going to open up a floodgate of people, they will have to see. They rarely are going to overturn the decision of Health Canada to deny somebody a license. I can't imagine they are, but it's making news. But one of the big problems that Health Canada is having with their licensed producer program is that it's fallen way behind, apparently because of additional regulations that are being heaped upon it by the RCMP.
I interrupt this program to tell you that this Butter King butter through this sublimator is so smooth.
It's very
Now we
smooth
return
and
to our original program.
Smooth and lemony. For some reason, the RCMP get to be the governing body on inspecting licensed medicinal grows. I'm not too sure why that is. The RCMP might have something to do with marijuana grows when they're illegal, but once they become legal, these people aren't professionals and know anything about it. And I'm not sure why they've weaseled their way into the program where they become the one that decides whether or not you should get a license to produce marijuana. This is crazy, and we have to watch this upon legalization is how the police want to continue to keep the prohibition going. They're
Well,
looking
it's
for
not
any
legal
chance.
if we can't grow some ourselves.
Yeah.
610 is reasonable if we have to have limits like that. These are all compromises on what we'd ideally want, which is no regulation. But that having been said, as long as we can grow our own and no one's going to jail,
That's
then
pretty
it's
good.
like the rest
That's
is,
pretty good,
then
yeah.
it's like a legal item, right?
Well, Washington, D.C., they did not legalize the sale of marijuana, but you can now possess it.
Yeah,
you can
that's
now
still a big
grow it,
improvement.
and you can grow it.
And you can grow it.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
So that's very important that we be able to grow for sure. And everyone will be. Marijuana will prevail, right? They've tried with their armies and their laws
Well,
and
it is
their
prevailing.
cops. Yes.
But you just got to think of it as a long term.
Yeah.
Marijuana is
Over
prevailing
time.
because there's more marijuana on planet Earth than there has been in the history of
Absolutely.
the human planet, or the humankind and the planet. So clearly, man and marijuana have united to basically overgrow those governments. 'Cause
That's right.
There's no place in the world where there's not a lot of pot growing, and there's a lot of people who want that pot.
So
And-
even with their huge prohibition that they've thrown at us all these years, now upon legalization, they're trying to throw a whole bunch of new regulations on top of it, which
Right.
they'll
Which is
find
their way
will
of keeping the prohibition intact.
fritter away over time.
Right. In other words,
I think.
for them to admit that marijuana is essentially harmless, kills no one. Now, you got to understand, if it kills no one, it makes it singularly alone on the earth, for anything that can do that. Because everything from Big Macs to aspirin to alcohol to tobacco to foods to peanuts to sesame seeds to you name it, psychoactive
That's a
drugs
very
to
good point.
poisonous mushrooms to millions of things will kill you, and most of them. Car bust, they'll kill you. Everything, electrical thing. More people die from electrical things than any other profession except lumbermen, because wood will kill you, and water will kill you.
Fishermen.
And fishing kills you.
Yeah.
Everything kills you but cannabis, right? So that should tell you it should be no more regulated than coffee.
Yeah.
Really.
Really?
Basically,
I
with
agree
kids,
with
you
that.
wouldn't want your 12-year-old to be drinking 3 cups of coffee. Probably you could have the same concern about whether they'd be smoking that much marijuana at 12 or any marijuana at all. But essentially no more regulated than coffee,
That's
which
what I
means
think
you need
too.
a regulatory agency of about zero
Zero.
people
Yeah.
with about no more than GST or provincial sales tax on it, right? And we should never be punished because at least with tobacco, we can prove that there is an incredible cost to the healthcare system
Absolutely.
by the massive amount of cancers of the lungs and mouth and things and larynx that we get, right? And that there's a clear mortality price to pay as well as intense hospital. Okay, so you can justify, okay, we can punish those people with a tax because we're going to spend it on them when they invariably, according to science, get some lung cancer or something. Okay, fair enough. And the alcohol people, they do enough obvious social damage while they're conscious and alive on alcohol that nobody even needs to be explained why we tax alcohol consumption. Because people turn into real bastards and they do great shit.
Do a bunch of damage.
Bad shit, and then they end up, hurting lots of people. So the money we tax them in some way is meant to alleviate
Yeah.
that. Now, of course, I don't exactly know how that alchemy works, whereas the pain of alcohol is transmuted into the profit of government, right?
Yeah.
But whatever. Okay, but with cannabis, there's none of that.
That works on a lot of things.
It's a totally positive therapeutic. I mean, it should be subsidized if we're going to use that kind of comparison, right?
Absolutely.
Marijuana has nothing bad to say about it. It has tremendous good. right?
Well, they have to continue with their prohibition to make their industry.
And listen, most
right?
spirits and most drugs aren't made in Canada, right? All those things are imported. This is something we can grow with our vast country for the world.
Yeah.
We could grow enough weed in Canada to supply everybody who wants to grow weed on this planet, without bar none. There's no question that. We have a vast, huge country with huge potential to grow a lot of weed. So that would be a wonderful thing, because we don't have whiskey, we don't make bourbon, we don't do a lot of stuff like that with alcohol. We don't even grow coffee here.
No.
Right? We
Just
have
got
no
wheat.
real
Well, we got is
tobacco
wheat.
industry anymore. So, I think if we're going to join the pantheon of the world's greatest substances, we don't grow tea, which is one of them, coffee, tobacco,
Rice,
alcohol,
no
all
rice.
these great. Yeah, we do. So this is our place naturally where we would shine. If Trudeau makes marijuana legal, it's our job, and he will, but if it's our job to make him see the full potential of not just legalizing it, but embrace this industry, make this our industry, so that in the next generation, 2, 3, 4 generations, people think Canada when they think of marijuana, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. This is a plant that over 250 million people want every day or within a week. 250 million people, that's not chump change. That's 10 times the population of Canada smokes marijuana on a regular basis. So we should embrace that. And
absolutely.
if we legalize that way, it would be a monumental success. It would be world-changing. Everybody would just be totally, holy, did you see what Canada did? Holy.
And how good their weed is?
Yeah.
How good they and how cheap it would be in a legal environment.
Yes.
Because we have vast greenhouse acreage that we could just grow staggering amounts of pot.
Unbelievable. And then if Africa decides to get involved, about the millions of acres they have to dedicate to it someday, all right? This is why I say marijuana will prevail. All right, it'll overcome all this overregulation.
What we've got to make sure prevails is indigenous strains. Wade Davis was at Idea City recently, and I've seen him before, and he always talks about protecting these ancient languages. I'm never sure about that, protecting ancient languages. I'm a believer that if we all spoke, one of 5 or 10 languages, would probably promote world peace better. If we all had less difference between us, less difference and less misunderstanding. But anyway, he always defends these indigenous cultures and languages. But the one thing we need to defend that's indigenous is our genotypes, seed genotypes,
Plants.
because I'm seeing this thing. What's happened when I used to go to Jamaica in the 1980s, I saw all these beautiful, sparse, budding, tall, unwieldy
The big
sativas, and they were amazing. And it was Jamaica's indigenous marijuana. Well, you can't find that
Not there
anymore.
anymore.
It's all been in place by all the Afghanis and Kush that we grow in North America indoors. And they grow it because they can do 3 crops a year. It makes lots more money. It's easier to... All these great things, but what's happening is those Jamaican strains have disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's gonna happen around the world. If money is the only way we measure the value of cannabis, then everything eventually will look the same because of money, right? And I'm talking. It starts out at first with yields, but then other things starts happening, and then we've abandoned all these indigenous strains that don't produce nearly as much, but are very interesting, very tasty. Yeah. It's because the price, the market isn't working properly. There should be strains that are twice as much in Canada because the yield is twice as little, they can say. Or like a White Widow. Maybe White Widow ought to be like $350 or $300 now, which for us is double. Then the wholesale, I get it for is like $125 Canadian an ounce. But that pot
Mark,
would probably go for $100.
Do you want to grab the mic, put it a little closer to your mouth, maybe?
The pot I'm getting for $125 probably goes for retail $175 or $200 tops, right? Type of thing, an ounce around then, and that's reasonable enough compared to Europe and the United States and all these other jurisdictions. But realistically, it should be a great deal less than that.
It'll go way down.
Yeah.
Given that the...
Actually, we're going to see that now. When we have legal pot and people growing their own in Alaska and Washington and Oregon and California to all intents and purposes, and then
Be a lot of
Colorado,
marijuana
that's a
around.
lot more marijuana being ramped up for production over the next little while.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, looking forward to all that. I've yet to smoke a legal bud, though. I've not had any marijuana that was purchased.
That's because you and I are barred for life in the U.S., aren't we?
Well,
yes, we are, of course. But.
No one's brought any this way.
All
that
right.
I'm aware
But
of,
we don't want them to, right? Bring it over a border?
No, they shouldn't.
No.
They shouldn't do that.
So probably you and
They
I
shouldn't
may,
do that.
you
the
and I may
Canadian
never do that.
authorities are
No,
worse.
that would be such a drag if I heard someone got caught bringing
No,
weed.
no.
Now, that having been said, remember we ran the contest, of course
contest.
you do, back in 2000. We asked people to send us their weed,
Which
and
they
we
did.
gave them an address that was the same as the Pot TV address is now. And we told them to send us your nugs.
Which they did
You know,
by
we
the
should do this now,
bucketful.
in fact. So,
Mark, we actually were planning on doing this. Mark, and I kind of launched the idea of doing it, but we didn't actually press it and we didn't go through
no,
with it
that's
because
it. We should just start right now. This would be great for the seed desk, our opening episodes, just like old days. The
contest.
Send us your nugs, and we will promote them, photograph them, film them, video them, broadcast them, smoke them, and assess and rate them. And
Come up with some fabulous
and you can
prize.
tell us how you did all that, and we will discuss your story about how you made this weed. Unless it's not very good, right? But we didn't. But we really never said bad things about any weed. We had 152 entries. It was the most staggering amount of weed.
152 in the end.
Yes, in fact, we could do that too. We could even, if you sent us, say, 3 grams, we could probably get effective taste to about 10 people.
Yeah.
10 people.
Could
We would
spread
pick
the,
those 10
joy.
people who would have to agree to come on air and be filmed. And then we would discuss that bud and rate that bud, and we could even put them all together eventually.
Well, stay tuned for details about that coming up.
Yeah. Sorry I took off in the
We,
microphone.
Oh no, we had a lot of fun
do that
doing
a lot.
that. It got down to
We had 10 episodes, and we were doing
12, I
17
think.
strains. At first, it's 10 strains an episode, and even then, some of the times I was nearly naked on my back, clothes.
we had
you know,
to ramp
gasping.
that up by the end of it.
And,
We ran out of time.
Yeah, we had to do
makes
17
for
in the later episodes.
Good internet TV,
Right.
though.
Then we got stopped by the police up there on the last
Yeah, because they were
night of
scouting
it.
around
Yeah.
to arrest us for the extradition.
Yeah.
They didn't care about 152 different
just
samples
smoked 18
coming in the
strains
mail,
of marijuana.
but they were really concerned about making sure those American DEA agents,
The cop said, "Where are you coming from?" And Jody said, "Oh, we're just at Pot TV." And he said, "Pot what?" I'll never forget him saying that. Pot what? Yeah, it was a funny time. Well, we had a blast doing the contest, and it worked out really well. That 152 or more people
We had
sent
10
weed.
credible prizes. The lowest was valued $75, and the
Yeah.
best was a volcano. And it was to come to the Toker's
to
Bowl,
Toker's Bowl.
all with airfare and
Fly
hotel and
in,
everything.
yeah.
It was worth like $2,500. And then the next prize was like a volcano. Back in those days, worth
There was
like
no
7 or 8.
weed that we were aware of. No one ever contacted us, said, "I sent you weed, but it didn't arrive."
No, every single
Not
thing that
one
was ever
person.
sent to it.
And we had-
Yay, Canada Post. They were we were amazing. But all along they were surveilling us too, which is really strange, right? They're totally surveilling me in every which way over the seeds by mail thing. That at that point more than ever. And meanwhile, DEA undercover cops are coming in during that time and trying to buy
seeds.
weed from me and seeds and stuff. Those were hell of days.
The Dillinger days, as we
So anyway, when you guys decide to go for that contest thing that people send us weed, in fact, if people did that now and it arrived, right, like the contest at 307 West Hastings Pot TV, if they did arrive, then we could definitely put together a special show or thing, or we could have that in a regular sequence, and we can have our panel of experts, which would include Lauren and Lisa. We'd have the panel of experts.
Yes.
Cannabis Culture, lounge, and the BCBL.
Definitely.
I think that'd
We
be
could
a
have
fun
a
thing.
revolving
Our
panel of
okay,
experts.
so it's official. Send us your weed.
Yeah, we'll make up a notice
and we
for
will
that.
pick out 10 civilians to analyze, grade, and we'll discuss your weed. In fact, to make sure it's perfectly fair, I will smoke it if you want me to, but maybe I shouldn't, right? Maybe we should make it a panel of 10. You would be in the panel. You could be in the panel.
I don't
Maybe
know.
a rotating panel.
Rotating, but no, I like the idea, because you have consistency, though.
Well, that's true.
No,
It
it's-
would
You
be good to have
gotta
consistency.
be able to smoke them all
Yeah.
to pick
It's
a
like
winner.
America's.
Well, and you should only have a really small hit too, though. That's the thing. So it's gonna once you're ramped up. See, here's the prejudice to the people
The rules.
who start first. They get you on that escalator going up to the top. But by the time you're at the top and you smoke sample number 5, you're flying, you're blazed, right?
That's true, and so
so
the last
there was
guy
no
gets the
strain.
biggest high.
By the time you've had 7 or 8, 9, 10 strains, they're all great but then they're not, because
Right.
they all blend into each other. So I was
That's
thinking
one of those
something
things
like,
about strain judging
like
that
we would
hard to
film
get
it,
over.
and then we would not use it in real time. We would splice it together and have them done. Like we could get them to sample it every 3 hours or the next day or something where
That's
they're totally straight each time.
Right, that makes
or
more
less,
sense,
right?
actually.
It's neutral. 'Cause,
Yes.
we did 17 strains in 3-hour period. No wonder I was drooling naked on
there's
the
no,
floor.
yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, that
it's
was
not
like
a real fair assessment.
not quite
of the,
drooling naked, but eventually I started taking my clothes off because I was going, my God, is it ever hot in here? Well, it sure was. The Klieg lights shining on you for 3 hours while you do massive bong hits.
And of course, you
with
can
each
rate
sample.
you can rate the other things like the way it looks and the way it smells, but you can't just that medicinal effect is kind
That
of the
having
hard
been
one.
said, this just made me think of the 3 times I have been too high, where. No, 3 times on pot, too high.
Oh.
Whenever I've been given a brownie, oftentimes it backfires and I have terrible reaction.
Yeah.
Because
Edibles.
they, like for example, that one when I was in Calgary, lovely person, like her a whole bunch, but she gave me this hash brownie and it was crunchy, and I'm eating, I swallow it and drink some water, and I say, how'd you make that? And she said, I got some really great brownie dough and put it, and then I got a whole bunch of hash and I threw it in. I said, really?
big hunks of hash.
Like chunks of hash? That's what I was just chewing? And you've heated it up? And so 40 minutes later, I am sweating, soaking my clothes. I'm throwing up terribly. I'm supposed to give a speech. It's the only speech I've ever missed in my life. I'm on all fours, throwing up, sweating, looking like a total reprobate at my own event. And I'm thinking, I'm never eating a brownie
it was too
again,
much
right?
hash.
So I've taken that to heart. That was in like 2009. And it turned out I disappointed everybody, of course. They didn't know. Oh, really? Your host gave you like a totally... But anyway.
Yes.
So I'm very
can't have a
suspect
too high of a
about
dose.
medibles or edibles.
Yeah.
And...
Well, Mark,
however,
you know
that's
the book,
the only
The
bad
Hashish
reaction
Eaters.
I can come
If
up
you eat a big enough piece of hash, you can have like psychedelic experiences.
The bad times I had with pot were when the Trailer Park Boys, when we did that wonderful sketch that has me in it, and they're saying "Go Canucks, go" on the Canucks bong, and then they asked me how I became leader of the BC Marijuana Party. Well, they make me do that massive bong hit 9 times. Well, as soon as I was done that, I had to go lie down for like a long time in the basement. And Details magazine came and did a photo shoot in my window and made me hit a bong just like this one. I used to have one just like that, 8 times. And I had to lay flat after all that too, right? And then the other one was a party we had for Dennis Perone at the Sitar restaurant. And we're going back to like 1996 here.
Yeah.
But we had a pipe with a 1/4 ounce bowl on it, a glass pipe, and I was determined to get that thing going. Well, that was a bad idea, so I ended up lying. I actually threw up a couple of times, and then ended up laying down. I mean, it's good probably when you do something like I do every day of my life, and I can remember the 3 times it didn't go well.
Right.
But
Exactly.
the worst that happened is first time I fell asleep, second time I fell asleep, and the other one, okay, admittedly, I threw up twice, and then I fell asleep.
Right.
Right. So.
And considering every time I drink, that's what happens to me. I think it's a kind of a.
You do worse things, but but most people do, because one of the things about alcohol is it erodes judgment. So you're not even in a good position once you've put alcohol into your system on determining how your behavior really is.
Yes.
Where things I try to tell moms and dads is your daughter's never going to become slutty on weed. She's never going to say something stupid. She's never going to change her character. She will never hang out with men she wouldn't normally hang out with by smoking joints. So if you're going to have your daughter do anything, have her smoke a lot of pot and she's going to be fine.
That's just
Totally,
the opposite of what
utterly fine.
Harry Anslinger was telling him back in the jazz age.
And that persists. But marijuana sensualizes you, but it doesn't change your morality. You don't do like the alcohol people who become totally different people sometimes.
Exactly.
And totally out of character or violent or prone to behavior changes. You don't see
Yes.
that with pot. All pot people do is they just enjoy doing what they would normally be doing, but they're enjoying it more.
Yes.
Right? Because it's all perceptual. Like we don't really change our outward physical behavior that much when we're high. What we're changing is the way we perceive information coming into us. So that has its transformations in music and art and all these other great things, but it doesn't change our character,
Right.
right? It just might give us a medicinal benefit or change the way that we perceive the world around us. And then consequently, that has an impact on our long-term behavior, but not our immediate short-term
Right.
behavior, right?
And
Also-
if anything, if it does affect any of those things, it allows you to kind of step outside the realm of who you kind of are, to look at it from another perspective. And if it changes your character, it's for the good, not for the bad.
Plus, it allows you to get erect easier.
Yes. Well, that.
So
that's
then there
helpful.
is this perceptual thing, but that's because for a male, orgasm erections are all about control. So when your mind's operating with your down here, and your brain is clear, free of tension and stress, and you're not preoccupied by problems of the world or whatever tensions and stresses, right? Well, pot makes you hooked up with your libidinous side and bypasses that stress.
It's
So
an
for the
aphrodisiac.
time that you're high, as far as a male goes, you're thinking, I can do this,
Yeah.
right? I can get into this, right? I'm motivated. I have desire, and so whereas you might not. If you were like stressed out and worried about bills, it's hard to get an
Exactly.
erection when you're besieged by money matters and relationship
That's
problems
true.
and stuff like that. So
It's true.
there you go.
Well,
And then there was a
pot's always
pause in
been
the show.
Pot's always been considered an
besieged by none
aphrodisiac.
of those things.
Yeah.
Well,
And as opposed to something like, MDMA, which is considered an aphrodisiac for some reason, but it
Well,
seems to chemically affect you when it comes to that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
it reduces testosterone,
Yeah.
which is why every guy on really good MDMA becomes the woman's best girlfriend for an afternoon.
Exactly.
Oh, you're like my best buddy. You're so totally into listening to me, and you understand. And you really do understand. I love being on pure MDMA
Yeah.
and being in a room of people I care about.
Me
That's
too.
the most awesome time. And it's probably the only time I'm not obsessed with sex.
Right.
Right? In fact, the MDMA just talks to me and says, Mark, you're always thinking about sex. So for this time, could you not think about sex? And I go, totally, I'm down with it. I'll listen to whatever you're listening about, And so consequently, you have wonderful times.
It really
You know.
is. It's one of the. It helps you
conversations.
bond
Yeah.
with other people in a lot of
Meaningful
ways.
conversations.
Yeah.
And, and there is that kind of, you almost can feel the vibe. Like the great
Yeah.
thing about some entheogens, like mushrooms or MDMA, or the really good stuff, is you can feel like you're hooked into their soul in a way.
Yes.
Right? So.
You respond really well with
Yeah.
the sort
Actually,
of subtle
all
cues
in
of
my
other
experience,
people.
all drugs are good for sex if a woman takes them, from their perception, and almost every drug is bad for men sexually. All of them are bad. For cocaine, bad. Alcohol,
Yeah.
really bad. All the MDMA for good reasons, but still bad for typing. But basically, it's pot,
Right.
hash, and Viagra / Cialis stuff. Those are about it. I studied this pretty thoroughly, as you can
Mark's
tell.
putting in a lot of field research.
And, yeah. Whereas I find that I've had a woman tell me almost any drug I've ever heard of can make them horny, or that they want to have sex during, right?
That's
Including
pretty
some
much-
stuff to
I'm
me,
with you on this
really,
one.
magic mushrooms? I can't even find my penis on magic mushrooms. Like I'm an organism. I'm an organism of the heaven. I'm an organism of the heaven. So
absolutely
And
true.
you're so right down here on
Yeah.
Earth,
No.
right? And normally I'm thinking that's how I think, very concrete bound, right? Like I can think sex through almost everything, but
Women seem
really
to have it
magic
together.
mushrooms? Wow.
Women always seem to have it together more than men when it comes to a lot of things, except maybe there's a few
No,
exceptions.
I've already answered your question because I've thought about this, and I think with women, any substance that makes them feel liberated beyond the strictures by which they've always grown up with.
Yes.
My dad liked me, and we were great, but he never told me anything about how I should treat women. But my sister was supervised rigidly from the day she developed sexual characteristics to the day she left home. He supervised her, called. So we see the difference that females get, right? So, after being told that watch out for your reputation with sex, watch out for getting pregnant, watch out for diseases, watch out for men that abuse you. I mean, really, they've got all these things on top of them, right? So it's nice when they take these substances, they feel free because I'm in a trusting environment, in a certain space where I have every reason to believe I'm perfectly safe, so I can finally get all these rules off my back.
Yeah.
Of being a good daughter,
Yes.
a good wife, a good husband, a good citizen,
Yeah.
and all these other things
All
that a woman
these-
is
the
supposed
moral
to be. They
browbeatings
can
they
actually
get.
say, I'm through with that just for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right?
It's so
Amongst
true.
people I care about, so I feel it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's so
Anyway.
great about psychedelics for everybody,
Yeah.
in a way. But very
But
much true
from
for
the
women
male
even more.
perspective, which is far less spiritual sounding than I spoke on behalf of those women, we have to get hard, and we need the direct channel open and communicating. So
Yeah.
we can't have anything polluting
Mushrooms in the
environment.
way. Yeah.
well,
See,
Glad we
basically,
glad we
women were
cleared
summed
that
up
all
in
up.
almost a lyrical, poetic way, and men were just beasts, meat beasts, that have
Yes. I totally agree. Hey, Mel Hempsey.
Well, that's about
in
it.
the room.
yeah. Well, glad we cleared
Hi,
that
Hempy.
all up for you. Wow.
By the way,
Say hi.
we're not recording or live or anything, are we?
Oh yeah, of course we are. No, we're not live.
We're about to go live.
Start the show. Let's go. Let's do this.
We never got a chance to even say hello to anybody in the chat.
Yeah, who's in the chat?
Oh,
Yeah.
there was tons of people.
Weezer and
Okay, what do they say about me?
Dobe.
Say hi, Mel Hempsey.
Supreme.
Hello, Pot TV.
Snow 420.
Hello, 28 dabs later.
8 dabs later.
Yeah, we should have another Mel and MzKush Queen Freedom Bong hits.
Yeah, I'll set Hempseed up with a toke over here.
Okay, good stuff. Okay. Are you ready? Let's go.
Always.
Well, I'm glad that you guys all
Bong
did
cam.
join us in the
Wow,
chat.
The bong.
We had a
Yeah,
full
put us
show
on
going
bong
on here.
cam.
Greg, you got the bong cam there?
No, I was distracted. You have to do that
The
again.
bong eye.
Come on, you gotta finish the rest of it. You left cloudy letters. Freedom is unclear.
Yeah.
And now it's getting clear. I can see clearly now the letters are. But I can see smoke in here still.
And then maybe
And that-
a hemp seed cam over here.
All right. How long does this show
Bottom
go
half
on?
a hemp seed. About 30 seconds
About an
more.
hour. But it's fluid, eh?
But it's flexible.
No, we're coming to the end of our broadcast day. We are glad that you all tuned in. Thanks a lot for everybody being here. There's Mel.
That was
No,
lots of
the
fun.
rest of Mel.
There she is.
We only saw the bottom half of her. Thanks to you for joining us at this late moment. Jeremiah, too.
It's nice of you to check in.
Well, that was fun. We got lots discussed.
Check out Jeremiah's
Including
show
some
on
stuff that some
Friday.
people are going to write me and say, I did not need to know that, Mark. I did not need to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Psychology, a lot of topics we touched on today.
sure. A
Sexual.
million. Thanks a lot, Mark, for coming by.
Did you have fun?
I did. I always have fun on the show.
Okay, good.
You know
MzKush
what?
Queen,
Highlight
thanks
my
for
week.
coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We didn't mention where Al is. He's now working in a restaurant in Naples, apparently. He split
What's up with that?
split off from the Vienna
Choir?
the choir. He was
What?
Oh, yeah. Well, first he was in a men's choir, or a boys'
boys
choir.
choir. Well, he got
He was touring with Sublimator 10 days ago. What's gone on?
he got hooked up in
Not
Vienna.
quite sure what he's
with the
smoking
boys.
over there, but yeah.
So really, you're serious? He's not with Sublimator?
I'm not sure if Greg is serious or not,
Greg
but
knows.
probably.
Okay, all right. I bought it.
Big blur.
I bought into it for a second.
We'll find out the true
Mark.
story when he gets back next week.
And Jody and I are going to the Netherlands. We will be in Amsterdam at the Cannabis Cup
Oh, nice.
from November 23rd to the 29th. I'm supposed to
cool.
get
Well-
my third Lifetime Achievement Award in the last 3 months.
Nice.
You're like a
And,
cat, eh? You get
Lifetime
9
Achievement Award.
Lifetime Achievement Awards. That'd be good.
Well, it's lots of fun because we'll meet a lot of Americans there. That
Oh, yeah.
it's their. I can't meet Americans unless they come here, which they
right.
will, and I hope they will continue to come to Vancouver because it's an awesome place to come. But I'm meeting them in Europe, and it's
yeah.
at least something like that. There's going to be probably some of the Americans that I have heard from or heard of me. So
that's
that could be a
wonderful.
lot of fun, and I look forward
Good year
to
to
that.
go to the Cannabis Cup if you're at all thinking about it. I think
doubt.
it'll be a big.
And speaking
fun
of high
time.
times too, I noticed that since I've been back, there's dozens of magazines out there. Just publications, magazines.
yeah.
And they
It's
all seem to have
exploded.
lots of ads in them, but man, it was such a struggle in our day.
Yeah.
And now there's
No, it's wide open. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Bye,
we've
Pot TV.
you paved the way
Bye,
for
Mel
all
Hempseed.
of this. to
yeah,
happen,
and it's
brother.
it's too impractical and expensive to start up cannabis culture again, and especially in a market that's flooded with magazines.
The prototypes are always the most expensive.
Yeah.
But no, we are where we are because of Mark and Cannabis Culture. So thrilled to be here as always.
And the Seed Desk,
look for that.
Marijuana Man at the Seed Desk, November 10th.
Yeah.
Happening here.
And
quickly,
more.
Yeah.
So stay tuned to Pot TV. We'll be back.
Tune in this weekend on Pod TV because Redbeard will be broadcasting the documentary film about the Great Canadian Glass Gathering. So that's going to be live on Pod TV this Saturday. And actually, if you're in the neighborhood down here at Cannabis Culture, you can actually watch it live in the lounge. We're going to be
there actually a movie?
simulcasting it. There is a movie, yeah, and there's a trailer available right now. I'm going to put that on the front page of Pod TV today. Yeah, Redbeard. He's been doing a lot of great stuff
He
up
did
in
this.
Birkin, British Columbia. This is the Redbeard Freedom piece. And I have Redbeard made a custom piece for me called
Which he
Lovecraft.
made
It's
as a gift
amazing.
for me.
He did make it as a
To
gift. yeah.
celebrate my return, so that's really awesome.
No, Redbeard is fantastic. And Redbeard puts together a little gathering every summer called the Great Canadian Glass Gathering. Great Canadian Glass Gathering. You can go to gcgg.ca. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. Up in Burke, British Columbia, like tons of glass blowers from all over the place get together. They make a whole bunch of great pieces up there in front of everybody, and the crowd can come and watch. There's cool camping, amazing food. Redbeard's the man. It's a really awesome gathering. So if you guys, if you're into glass, check that out, and check out the documentary on Saturday. So 4 p.m. PT, I believe that's the time. Is Redbeard still in the chat? If I'm off on the time there, look at Pot TV before this weekend. I'm going to have it up on the site today, all the information about the thing happening this weekend. So.
Oh, is Redbeard on the chat?
He was in the chat for a few minutes now. I don't know if he's still there.
Somebody probably told him it was here.
Yeah,
the Freedom Bar was
that's
here.
right. He missed the show, I think, but then he was just in for a second or two.
Maybe I should have another dab.
All right. Well, thanks a lot to everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back next time. I'm Marijuana Man. Peace. And pot.
Woohoo! Let's